This is how Micah Parsons rolls. I swear, after listening to the Edge podcast with Bleacher Report, I'm like, I think Micah Parsons wants to join the 49ers. Let's start with what he said about Brock Purdy.
And I just don't think that we should sleep on Brock Purdy no more. Yes, he was a 7th-round pick. Yes, he came in late in the season and won 6 straight games, took him to the NFC Championship before his injury. But Purdy, you will not be slept on no more, brother. I think people are coming for you the same way they come for Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. Yes, you are surrounded by a great team, but you are playing your butt off. You got one hell of a story, brother. If we were to rank Purdy right now, I would put Purdy around, I think Purdy's a top 15 quarterback. There's things that we still want to see from Purdy, not when Purdy's winning, but when Purdy's down. You know, I think the adversity aspect of the football game is huge. Learning how to play from behind, learning situational football. It's not something I'm saying he can't do. It's just something that we just haven't seen yet.
I mean, I am struck by this. Look, I already thought some of this to a degree, but there was that list. I think it was The Athletic. I hope I'm not quoting that incorrectly, but about 2 weeks ago, it was the quarterback power rankings, and Brock Purdy came in 32nd.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, that's laughable that you're sitting here putting, I mean, C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young were all ahead of Brock Purdy, having never played in the NFL. And you're like, I get it. We were the ones who coined the phrase. It's draftism. So he suffers from draftism. So people are putting these guys ahead of him just because they were picked in the top 5 of the first round, even though that's got nothing to do, as has been proven here and everywhere else, it's got nothing to do with whether or not he can play in the league. Brock Purdy has already proven that he can play in the league. So if you want to put him at 20 or whatever, fine, make your case. 32 was disrespectful and ridiculous. But he comes out and he plays one game. And I know it's been nine games, but one game this year, erasing the fears of his injury. Also, I think confirming to people that what happened last year was not some sort of a wild unicorn ride. And immediately, you've got maybe one of the best young defensive players in the league, putting him at top 15. So it's funny, the effect of one game, but he's also right. And the more we think about it, I'm like, it's not even that hot of a take. I would put him in the top 10 in terms of who I would want in this league to quarterback the 49ers.
Sure. And you could look at it based on just right now, this year, because, you know, you can talk about Aaron Rodgers and, well, now he's gone for the year, so he doesn't really count in the conversation anymore. If he didn't get hurt last night, you would put Aaron Rodgers ahead of Brock Purdy. I would anyway, but now that he's not available, he's not on my list. And it's really not about this year or the next 5 years or who's going to have the best career or who's already had the best career. It's right now, and we have a poll up on the YouTube page.
Yep.
If you're in the YouTube audience, you can weigh in. We've gotten more than 250 votes. How many QBs are you taking over Brock Purdy to start for the 49ers? And the majority of people are saying between 1 and 5 total QBs. 6 to 10 is running second at 30%. 11 to 15, which is where I sit, is at 10%. And then 16 or more quarterbacks, 7%.
Which is, I think if you actually ask those people to name them, you get to the point of sounding silly. I mean, to get to 16 or more quarterbacks means you are starting to put names like Daniel Jones and Jimmy Garoppolo.
But we mentioned like Goff and Carr and Dak.
But even that keeps
on
him
top of my 11.
Yeah, but even that keeps him in the top 15.
Yeah,
like give you 3 more.
Geno.
Still, I mean, Geno
I'm with
Smith.
you. I'm with you in terms of how it sounds when you get to like Geno Smith, and then if you want to throw in Baker Mayfield as another one. Now I think we're getting into stretch territory,
which I would call silly. Like honestly, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah,
I mean he's on his 3rd team. He's been kicked around.
Justin Fields would be a name you could throw in the same sort of neighborhood of the teens.
If you wanted to make the case that you're still intrigued by Justin Fields' upside over Brock Purdy, I can understand that. But again, then I would say that's not the question we asked. The 49ers are among the best teams in the league. They might be the best team in the league. Who do you want quarterbacking it right now? I think you're crazy if you say Justin Fields to that. If you tell me you want Justin for the next 10 years over Brock, my ears are open on that. I can hear where you're coming from there.
Right. You still would disagree, though.
I would disagree, but I don't think it's a crazy take. But to say that the 49ers right now would want Justin Fields over Brock Purdy like this weekend, come on. I mean, come on, what are we doing? What are we looking at? You know, and I get where some of this comes from. And, you know, you and I have had this conversation and see it a little bit differently. But I very, very much reject the idea that because the 49ers have good players in Kyle Shanahan, it makes the quarterback position plug and play. I just don't buy it. I understand why it looks and feels that way to some people, but from a personal standpoint, I have such a high level of respect for the difficulty of playing that position at this level. I don't think that you can stumble into being good. I don't think you can have a good coach and good teammates and therefore play great football. It's why I defended Jimmy for years, even though he's more limited than Brock. I go by what TJ Houshmandzadeh said to us an hour ago. The bottom line is Brock Purdy is not any longer a, quote, 7th-round draft pick. He is someone who was misevaluated.
Yes, absolutely.
That's how I feel about him.
And if you go back to his draft and you do the classic redraft, he goes top 10. He might go top 5. And I don't know all the names in front of me on who went in that draft. But, you know, if you're going to redraft, Brock Purdy goes higher than he did in the original draft, which is the last pick taken in his own draft. And, you know, you look at what he's done with this system, and it's hard for me to separate him. And if you look at all the names on your list of quarterbacks that you would take over Brock Purdy, you're saying that all those guys could come in and do as well as Brock Purdy in this system. And I agree with that, and that's why I put even a few more names on there in terms of guys like Tua. Could Tua come in and run the Kyle system and do as well as Brock Purdy? I believe he could, absolutely.
Tua, to me, is an interesting sort of a comp, or if you will. He's an interesting question. Obviously, he's coming off of 466 passing yards. He has been less consistent than Brock. They went head-to-head last year. Brock got the better of him. I get that that's not a fair comp because the Niner defense is amazing and the Dolphins defense is not. Here are the names from the 2022 quarterback draft, okay? Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett. This is not in the order that they were picked. These are the quarterbacks. Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral.
It's Corral.
Oh, is it Corral?
Yep.
Okay. Matt Corral, Bailey Zappi, Skylar Thompson, Brock Purdy. Those are your quarterbacks. If you redid that now, there is not only no question that Brock would go first, there would be a large amount of space between the selection of Brock Purdy and whoever went second. There are still some interesting names there. Sam Howell has taken over for the Commanders.
Yeah. Desmond Ridder, one of 2 quarterbacks to have a higher QB rating than Brock Purdy in week 1.
Which is wild because he barely threw the ball.
Which is why I
all.
hate quarterback rating.
He completed
Jordan
everything.
Love is the other one.
Okay. Malik Willis is still sitting out there on the Titans depth chart. Kenny Pickett, as we know, is the Steelers starter. Skylar Thompson got time for the Dolphins last year. Zappi for the Patriots. And Corral got bounced around as the Patriots back up for a minute or two this preseason as well. But you look at that list, it's not even close. It is not even close.
Well, I was talking about just redrafting the whole draft and where Brock Purdy would go. Forget the quarterbacks because he goes number 1 among quarterbacks, and maybe you take Desmond Ridder too. I think Ritter's got a lot of upside. I like what Atlanta's going to be able to do, but if you look at the draft as a totality, he's absolutely a first-rounder, and he might even be a top 10. You look at Sauce Gardner, who went number 4, Aiden Hutchinson, who went number 2. There's a number of good, bright young players that went early in that draft, but you got a quarterback who has done as well as Brock Purdy has. He absolutely goes in the top half of the first round if you redrafted that whole draft.
Ridder did not turn the ball over, had a completion percentage of 83.3.
Yeah.
But he went 15 of 18 for 115 yards. And his top receiver caught 0 passes. 0.
In the win.
Yeah, they
Okay.
won. Yeah, they beat Carolina.
And they're going to do this every week. That's the blueprint in Atlanta. They might be the only team in the NFL that runs the ball more than the Niners this year.
I think you're right, but the blueprint is that because he's not able to get the ball downfield. I mean,
I wonder
if
the blueprint isn't that because that's winning football. And that's how Atlanta beat the Niners last year.
Well,
they ran it down their throat.
Right, and with a completely different quarterback and obviously a different situation.
But they drafted Bijan Robinson.
And he's fantastic.
And, I mean, they've got a cadre of weapons, including the guy I was trying to drop, but apparently I'm not getting Puka Shell, so I'll be stuck with Cordell Patterson for another couple of days.
Oh, you can pick someone else up.
I'm going to have to, Mark.
Just not Puka Nakua.
Yeah, Puka Shells is going to be on Willard's sad sack
Plays
operation.
for Brock-a-doodle-doo now.
Yeah, he will pretty soon, right? What are those posts tonight at 9?
Yeah.
Anyway, I do think that Atlanta is going to do that by design. I think that they want to run the football and play that style.
Here is a fun fact for Desmond Ridder. He has never thrown an interception in the NFL.
Wow.
He has never thrown one in 133 pass attempts.
That's not bad. I was going to say 4 games or...
well, now 5.
Okay,
Started
4
last year.
Okay.
Another one this year. 88 for 133, a completion percentage of 66.2, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. However, he's also not even gotten to 1,000 yards yet.
For his career.
In those 5 games.
Yeah.
He hasn't even got to 900 yet. So
some pretty meager totals, though,
yeah.
from week 1. I'm just looking at the list, and you've got Russell Wilson, $177, your guy, your lover boy,
my lover boy.
Jimmy G, and even 2 Bills. Quarterback rating of 107.8.
Yeah.
You got Baker, 173, Hurts, 170, Geno, $112.
In general,
Zachy Poo, 140 for the Jets.
You know, it's interesting. What you're talking about, I think you actually saw in the fantasy football community. If you look, go to your whole league and just look at the scores, and you're like, dude, the scores weren't very good. It was not a good start for fantasy football.
Unless you had Tua.
Yeah.
Quarterback-wise, nobody lit it up.
If you were in the Dolphins-Chargers game, good for you. If you weren't, I hope you had Ayuk. But outside of that, who really, really did the darn thing? There was
Mac Jones had 3 tuds and a 316.
Right. And his top target was somebody who was not even drafted in fantasy football,
Right.
So
and Mac is probably not starting unless he's in some of these cockamamie 2 quarterback leagues.
Yeah,
and even then.
It wasn't great. It wasn't great offense. And maybe that's because it was week 1 and everybody was slow out the gate. But again, my favorite stat of the weekend, when you look at those, the 4 quarterbacks who I would argue get the most pub out of the AFC. Mahomes.
That's an L.
Allen.
Loss.
Burrow.
Loss.
Herbert.
He lost too.
0-4.
Man.
Herbert at least scored points. Burrow couldn't even complete a pass. And Mahomes' team only scored 20 points. And Josh Allen turned the ball over 4 times. The best of the best were not good in week 1, largely. But Purdy and Tua, guys like that, actually won the day. So pretty interesting start. Obviously, we're just getting started.
Burrow threw for 82 yards on 31 attempts.
Yeah.
That's almost impossible.
Bad weather, and I think the Browns' defense is really good.
Yeah.
And I also think Burrow was, A, a little bit hurt still, and B, had no training camp. So super rusty. Those are, and we'll see. I don't think that's going to last all year, but yeah, they could not get a first down.
2 lowest QB ratings in week 1. Danny Dimes, show me the money.
Yep.
And Tannehill.
Oh, gosh, they were lower than Burrow?
Yeah. Bryce Young also lower than Burrow. Bryce Young threw for $146, 2 picks.
Interesting.
Joe didn't throw a pick, which is why his QB rating was higher than...
Yeah. Joe didn't complete anything to
Josh
anyone.
Allen and Joe Burrow were 5th to last and 4th to last in QB rating. And I don't love the stat, but
I know you don't.
It just indicates the kind of day you had.
It tells a portion of the story. Tells a portion of the story, not the whole
I would
story.
love for QB rating, let's go to the phones.
Yeah.
I would love for QB rating to be weighted based on the severity of the pick, because Jimmy G is a classic case where another red zone pick, but the QB rating is 107.8.
I agree with you, and actually, I really wish there was a way to statistically quantify when the pick is completely not your fault.
Oh, right.
Mahomes hits Kadarius Toney in the damn hands.
Damn hands.
And it's a pick six, and Mahomes like, I got a pick. And my quarterback rating goes into the tank.
Thanks, KT.
Like, holy smokes. I wish there was a way to do that. There really isn't.